Alright, another case of epic fail. In this case, probably not so much epic fail, but just general fail. Gateway 500 SE case. Now this one is, I wouldn't say it's, like I said, not really too much fail. It's just a couple stupid things they did that turned what could have been a very decent case for its time into a rather crappy one. We got our standard small ventilation ports that are actually just angled holes to start with, which once I show you the inside of it, this goes into very small holes on the inside, so this looks much better than it really is. To their benefit, there's actual USB ports up at the front. This was something that was kind of just starting to catch on at the time. This came out, remember, this is probably about 2002, because it is designed for Windows XP and has a Pentium 4. Notice there's no hyper-threading logo on there, so this is one of the first Pentium 4s without hyper-threading, and at the same time Windows XP came out, so this was probably 2002 or late 2001 at worst case. On the back, standard ports, PS2, couple USB there, parallel, serial, VGA, and all that good stuff. Standard. These can take a normal power supply. If I do remember right, they're same size. The bracket is appropriate, so it's not any trick to that. So now you're probably wondering, why am I going on about this crazy computer? Well, besides the ventilation in the front I just told you about, it's got a very odd opening and closing system. Basically, to open it up, you have to squeeze on the back these two connections together, and as you can see here, in the process of doing so, that kind of pops out a little bit on some of these. These can sometimes break like that. I'm not talking about the top piece, I'm talking about the screw piece. That'll pop out and sometimes just completely come off altogether. But the process of squeezing these two together releases these two clips here, which allow this top piece to actually come off. As you can guess, if that doesn't work, getting into your system is very difficult, because you can't just simply slide it off. It actually lifts up and away, and those two clips keep it in. There's nothing you can do as far as taking that out and still having your case stay on. You can go through and physically remove these. As you can see, they are screwed in, and you do have a little bit of a hole here. You see kind of right there. Helps sorry, get that out of the way. You do have this little hole here. You could put a screw in and keep it on if you decide to completely remove the mechanism, but usually by the time you find out about it, it's probably going to be broken. So, as I was saying before, on the inside of this, you see that nice ventilation hole you saw before turns into that. Not really much of anything there, and you'd think that the ventilation behind here would be good, but it's mostly going to be blocked out by your hard drive, all this extra metal, yada yada yada, and it gets clogged full of dust as well. And to make things worse, you go through and actually release these clips. You actually have to squeeze these two together, pull it apart. You'll see that that gets clogged full of dust very, very quickly, very, very easily. It's not pretty. This thing actually has to be taken outside pretty much to get that off. Yeah, just set it there and hope it doesn't disease the rest of the stuff here. Then moving further in, you'll see there's really nowhere you could mount any fans there. The one place there should be a fan, there isn't. And then I guess their excuse for, okay, we're not going to put a fan here, we'll just tack it onto the power supply, which is just blowing air into the power supply, but doesn't really have any way of getting air out. And then we have a very undersized fan, in my opinion, for the heatsink. Remember, this is a Pentium 4. They're not exactly known to be cool processors, so they do run a bit hot. And there's really no ventilation in here at all. So that's the problem with this case, in my opinion. Ventilation, not the lack thereof, but the actual great potential it had for ventilation. You had a fan that should have been put here by default, which if this customer wasn't planning on just keeping this for only a couple more months, I would go ahead and put one in, but they're planning on just replacing this system in a couple months. And then the up front here, if this was simply moved down further, they could have put a fan there that would have helped some, or even just drilling out some holes here and mounting the fan there. That could have worked too. But it's almost a perfect storm of bad conditions that happened here. So, not a epic fail, but it could have been a lot better. So, until next time, I'll see you later. Hopefully, if I don't choke to death on this dust.